to the world of work now, and that leads us very nicely into our next question, which Amy is going to ask.
As you've seen in the film, this project has given us the opportunity to go into businesses and see what it's like in the world of work. Do you think that students have enough opportunities like this, and what can be done to improve the communication between businesses and schools?
You had a brilliant time, didn't you? You could tell by those films that going into the different workplaces has been a real highlight of this project. So let's find out then the chance to go into the world of work, to see the opportunities. Who was it that said on the film, I think it was Callum's dad, who said that there are jobs that they haven't even thought of, and by going into the workplace, that's a way of doing it. Can we make this happen more?
Absolutely. It's part and parcel of existing in business today that we are inviting students to come and find out what we offer. Because at the end of the day, those students are our potential employees of the future, and actually, quid pro quo, they are our customers of the future as well. So the more we bring people into the workplace, the more we can help prepare them for the difference between an education that the government says you have to have and has to deliver, and a job that you have to earn.
The second part of the question was about improving communications between schools and businesses. What would you like schools to do that they're not doing now in the way of communication?
When I look at some of the things we've been involved in the past, we've had teachers come into business and we've mentored those teachers to help them understand what the difference is between delivering an education and using that education within the workplace. And I think that's really important, because you can exist in isolation of each other, or you can understand what both are trying to deliver. As an employer, we want fantastic employees. As a teacher, you want fantastic pupils who are going to become fantastic employees. And if those two sectors work together more, it can only be for the benefit of those employees, those customers, those pupils.
Jane, this idea about students going into businesses and schools and businesses working more closely, how can you see that improving and developing in the future?
It's got to be a good idea, hasn't it, for students to be experiencing the world outside school. Most schools will have some kind of work experience programme. There's something there which can be built on, which can be expanded, just so long as, and we don't at the moment, but just so long as we don't fall into the trap of thinking we can't release students for work experience because they need to be in the classroom learning more. So long as we don't fall into that trap, and so long as we do continue to allow this to happen, and there needs to be communication, there needs to be some kind of communication between business and education to facilitate that.
Callum, can I ask you, because it obviously was a highlight, everyone had a great time going out and about. You had that opportunity to go to as many different places as your group because of this project. Would you normally get the chance to go into business workplaces?
Apart from the week work experience, no. I can give you an example. For the work experience, I asked at many different businesses, and they said we don't want the work experience. We don't want to like risk, potential customers because of a work experience. I think that was a very poor excuse. After all, I could have been a potential employee, like Ken had said, but no, we definitely don't get these business opportunities.
The visits you made, were they just half-day, one-day visits? They weren't sort of work experience per se?
They're a full-day visit, and we did have an insight of the business. Like we went to Waitrose and we found out everything that happens there, different sectors you could look at and work in. And it was really interesting. I was really proud to be there and to take in the experience. I think all of my other colleagues were as well.
David?
Yeah, I think we've really got to look at this. I can remember my days, a careers evening, and bang, everything was there. And this work experience hasn't changed since my kids were at school, and they're both adults now with families. And strange as it may seem, my daughter, who went there, now lives in New Zealand, and she's a careers officer in a high school over there. And she has a department she's in charge of. They mentor with the children, they go out with employees, they do one-to-ones, and they get a relationship between future employees and the students. And why aren't we doing things like that here? Why aren't we more inventive? A week's work experience, come on, that went out with the art. You've got to have lifestyle training, you've got to to get with it. And I think we could look at what's going on elsewhere. And I know my daughter was quite, when she came back this year, was quite horrified to listen to, you know, her friends with kids who are doing work experience still. And she's saying, well, why aren't they building relationships with future employees, with future people? It's just not happening. And I think we've really got to have a shake-up in that, because it's not happening. And we're talking about our future. And even today, the other day, there was something on Look East about oil rig workers. What an age. And, you know, come on. We've got them here. Let's do something. And we're just not doing it. We're going down a blind alley.
I think this thing about life skills is an interesting too, and workplace skills. It was, I do apologise, I've forgotten the name, the lady from NSORS, who was saying just the simple things like learning to shake people's hands and look them in the eye, and the whole sort of persona you put on in the workplace. So what can be done about this workplace? Are you finding that businesses don't want it?
We've been doing this for years, actually. We've been talking about this for 20-odd years, and it's been happening. It is easier. Suffolk One, we're lucky, we're a big, brand new institution that lots of businesses want to be associated with. So we're very lucky, but it's a challenge for smaller schools like Holbrook or other small high schools to develop those links. And it's a real challenge, and business and schools want exactly the same thing. They actually speak the same language but in separate rooms at times, really, because when we bring business into our schools and colleges, they say, oh, these students are wonderful, they work really well as a team and they communicate really effectively, and I'd love to give them a job. It's as if they haven't got children of their own. And likewise, there are staff in school that sometimes say, we can't let a student out of my class because I've got to teach them GCSE geography, and actually the week out of geography will probably inspire them more than weeks in geography. I'm sure that's not the case.
There's probably not a geography teacher here, you're quite safe.
But we've been doing it for years, but it's not an easy thing to crack, because things like health and safety, and I think we've got to look at a bit of revolution here. I think we've got to start taking some risks. I think we've got to get away from this obsession with sitting exams at 16 and be set on a career path. That's the pressure that I had to make a decision whether I was going to go to university or get an apprenticeship, and I had to make that. And if I left it until I was 17 or 18, in those years I was too old for an apprenticeship. It is changing. Employers are far more flexible about taking people in at different ages. The education system is still predicated on performance at 16 or 18, and while schools and colleges are judged on exam results at 16 and 18, I'm sorry that parents will still send their kids to schools that set lots of GCSEs and get lots of points. So I think we've got a big piece of work to do. I think particularly as youngsters get to 14, 15, 16, 20, whatever it is, I think we can start to look at a more flexible approach. And I think there are plans afoot to start to look at things like the City deal and bring economic strategy together with educational strategy, and actually see that businesses in the UK need to think long-term about skills development, all employers, and actually be prepared to invest in training and education, and not look for a short-term investment on shareholders' dividends. I'll get off my soapbox.
No, that's fine. You're here to go on a soapbox. It's not a problem. We've got several employers in the audience. If you'd like to chip in at this point, please do raise your hands. Equally, we've got a lot of students in the audience too, and I'd like to hear from some of them. So, right, we've got that end first, then I'll come to you afterwards, if I may.